Fighters of the Special Forces, Azov Regiment of the Ukrainian National Guard have prevented another attack by the occupying Russian army on motorcycles. The advancing occupying soldiers, waving Russian and Soviet flags, were stopped by missiles fired from a drone. Although the surviving infantry soldiers tried to hide in nearby houses, the houses were blown up by artillery and drone strikes, and the invaders inside were destroyed. Public discontent is brewing in Russia's Republic of Bashkortostan over a government-backed plan to develop copper mining deposits in the Krikhtata mountain range, according to Moscow Times. It is noted that the fresh tensions come after Bashkortostan, a republic in Russia's Volga-Ural region, was rocked by protests and sweeping repressions unparalleled for wartime Russia last year. While politicians and loyal bloggers wage a campaign to promote the alleged benefits of copper mining for the regional economy, locals appear ready to risk repression and arrests to protect their scenic indigenous lands from irreversible ecological damage. Part of the Ural Mountains, the Krikhtata Range is situated along the banks of the Bolshoy Kyzyl River, forming a picturesque landscape that makes the range and its surroundings one of the most attractive spots for outdoor tourism in the republic. Rich in copper deposits, the range has long been eyed for development by the Russian Copper Company. The mining giant is owned by Forbes-listed billionaire Igor Altushkin, who is under Western sanctions for aiding Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Rumors of RCC's plans for copper extraction on Krikhtata initially surfaced in the media in February 2019, prompting a public petition calling on President Vladimir Putin to halt the project and amend the federal-level law on mineral extraction licensing. Environmental activist Eduard Kadyrov, who launched the petition that received over 7,000 signatures, had warned that mining works at Krikhtata could bring toxic waste to the Bolshoy Kyzyl and Mali Kyzyl rivers, which supply drinking water to the nearby town of Sibay and the industrial hub of Magnitogorsk. Kadyrov also warned that mining could pollute the nearby Lake Yaktikul, one of the top tourist attractions in Bashkortostan and a designated natural monument. In a video address posted on Salavatsko's VKontakte page, company head Tager Bakhtagariv said that preparations and final approval for mining works could take several years and would require presenting the final works plan to residents and holding public hearings. Important, the license was granted by the federal authorities. Any attempts to approach the Republic's government about this project would equate to making it political, Bakhtagariv warned, vowing to develop a project that meets the strictest environmental standards. Bakhtagariv also dismissed environmental activists' warnings of irreversible river pollution as unfounded, referencing the company's prior experience running similar projects in the neighboring Chelyabinsk region, one of the country's most polluted regions.
In Belgorod, direction, trapped in a hellish grind of constant losses, poor tactics and relentless Ukrainian drone strikes, Russian soldiers are facing one of the lowest morale crises of the war. Recently, the alcohol abuse and desperation boiled over to the point where drunk Russian soldiers started launching Rambo-style attacks. Euromaidan Press reports. After Ukraine's initial incursion, Russia rushed in thousands of reinforcements, hundreds of whom were detected en route and wiped out by Ukrainian airstrikes, shattering the Russian ability to launch organized counterattacks and scattering their troops. As this is forcing Russian tactics to once again devolve into unsupported infantry assaults, Russian commanders seemingly have no other choice, as letting up the pressure for even one moment may allow Ukrainians to secure more villages in Belgorod. To conduct their assaults, the Russian infantry units are moving through the narrow tree lines and larger forests towards the villages of Demidivka and Popivka. If we look at the topographic map, we can see that the area has a high amount of relief, with gullies and river valleys spread all over the place. Euromaidan Press says, to achieve at least some cover against Ukrainian fire, Russians are trying to move through these terrain features to reach the relative safety of the settlements. Once in the settlements, Russians are much less exposed to Ukrainian fire, as the many abandoned and destroyed houses, basements and cellars provide ample opportunities to seek shelter in. To counter these tactics, Ukrainians are relying heavily on drone surveillance, monitoring the forest edges and marking buildings they detect Russians moving into for subsequent FPV drone strikes. Additionally, well-equipped Ukrainian squads are deployed in and around the villages, able to quickly respond to Russian soldiers moving out in the open, with Ukrainian drones constantly monitoring Russian ground lines of communication and past airstrikes, devastating logistics hubs and bases. Consistent resupply has become near impossible, as footage from Demidivka shows how Russian soldiers are forced to trudge around with heavy packs carrying enough supplies for a long deployment. Euromaidan Press says, low morale and rampant alcohol abuse among Russian troops reflect both the hopelessness of the situation they are in, as well as the negligence by their commanders, failing to adequately support their assaults and using suicidal tactics resulted in heavy losses to Ukrainian drones and small arms fire. With no clear objective and mounting casualties, many survivors are losing the will to fight. The lack of command and control only worsened the situation, as troops were thrown into senseless attacks aimed only at sustaining pressure, rather than securing real gains. Overall, the Russians continue to launch disastrous assaults, where the unsustainable nature of these attacks and the incurred high losses caused the morale of the remaining Russian soldiers to collapse. Euromaidan Press reports the suicidal nature of the Russian assaults, stemming from the inability to coordinate a combined counterattack, has been the leading cause of their failure to decisively defeat the Ukrainian Belgorod incursion, resulting in tremendous losses while being unable to mount a decisive pushback.